Welcome to Baba's Talk Show, recorded live in Gold Coast, Australia.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome back to another episode of Baba's Talk Show. I'm Hussein Baba. Now today, as usual, we have a very interesting topic. But today's subject is very, very special. Now before I talk about that subject, let me introduce my co-host. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Afshin, nice and good. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. You looking good?
Thank you.
Okay.
What's the topic for today?
Today, Afshin, I've chosen a very, very special subject. It's very important.
And what is that?
Islamophobia.
Islamophobia. It's a very interesting topic, very sensitive, and quite current as well with the incident that happened. So why did you choose this subject?
The reason why I chose this, Afshin, do you know, like last week, there was a very unfortunate incident,
Yes.
whereas you might have seen the video,
Yes.
whereas a pregnant lady was violently attacked in Paramatta.
Yes.
The other reason is because at the same time, there was a report released by University
Yes.
called Islamophobia Report.
Yes, I've seen that.
Yes, that's right. And then, by the way, this week, National Day of Elimination of Violence Against Women.
Very good.
So considering all these points, we thought, why don't we do a show on Islamophobia?
Very good.
All right? Okay. We'll be back very shortly after this message. Welcome back. Now, as I told you, today is a very special story and also very important. And I have invited some high-profile people from the Queensland, okay? Because we are broadcasting from Queensland. Let's start with introduction. On my left, I have a group of representatives from Brisbane. The organizations are based in Brisbane. Let me start with Haji Habib Jamal, who is the president of Islamic Council of Queensland. And next to Haji is Rita Anwari, who's the founder and CEO of Women Empowerment, right? And then followed by Dr. Nora Amath from, listen to this, Islamic Women Association of Australia. Right. And then, of course, next to Nora is Rita Jabri, who is a lawyer as well as the advisor with Australian Muslim Advocacy Network. All right, so that's Brisbane side. Now on this side, I have all the Gold Coast people. Okay, next to me is Acting Chief Superintendent Craig Hanlon. Okay, and next to, well, she doesn't need an introduction, but anyway, I introduce to you. She's the Queen of Gold Coast, Cornelia Babbage. Okay, she's the director of MFO, which is Multicultural Family Organization, and next to her is Rana, who works along within MFO, and of course, my co-host. Afshin, thank you one and all for participating in these very special programs, and especially for those who travel all the way to Brisbane. Thank you so much. All right. Now, let me start with Rita. Rita, today the subject is Islamophobia. What does Islamophobia exactly mean?
Islamophobia is the irrational fear, hatred or prejudice directed towards Muslims or the Islamic faith.
I see. Okay. Rita, you are the CEO of Women Empowerment.
That's right.
Now, I assume you have seen the video which took place in Paramatta.
Yes.
Can you explain to us what was your first reaction when you saw that video?
It was kind of like unacceptable for me as an Afghan Australian Muslim, and we're living in Australia as a multicultural country. It doesn't matter if anybody have a scarf or not a scarf, they need to be treated the same as equal, because we're living in Australia. It was absolutely unacceptable for me and very shocked.
Just mention, what is the latest on that case?
Yeah, obviously I can't talk specifically about the case because it's before the court, but my understanding is that a male person approached the three women in the cafe.
Right.
They're all wearing hijabs, and an open source has said there was anti-Muslim comments made by the male.
Okay.
And then the male assaulted one of the ladies who actually was 38 weeks pregnant.
Okay, yes.
He's been charged with assault and affray and has been held in custody. And my understanding is he'll go to court in the Paramatta local court on the 5th of December.
Okay.
What I've also found out is that he was acting alone in this instance.
All right, okay. Nora, recently a report has been released by Charles Sturt University, which is called Islamophobia Report. Can you elaborate more on this report? And also, if you could, highlight some of the important points from this report.
Well, this report is really important. It basically is the second report that's come out of the Islamophobia Registry, which was established in 2014. This last report that we has just been released takes charts over basically all of the registered Islamophobic incidents of 2016 and 2017. And they were able to verify about 349 reports. Now, this is really the tip of the iceberg. What it highlights is a few things. What it highlights is that the reality is we live in an era where Islamophobic events happen. It is reality. I think so many years we've been saying that Islamophobia is becoming normalized. Now we have the statistics to show that. The majority of the victims in this Islamophobic phenomenon are women. Many of them are very visible Muslim women like myself. Many of the perpetrators are men. So you're looking about over 70% are Muslim women, and 96% of those Muslim women are visible. And then over 70% are male perpetrators. So there's an intersection of gender here and violence. This is something that's really important to highlight, that it's not just about cultures or Anglo versus Cole communities. This is a very gendered intersection, and that we need to look at. The other thing that's really interesting that's come out of this recent report is how blatant and open these incidents are happening. It is happening in areas that are very public. It is happening in areas where it's either a shopping center or a train, public transport, or bus, where there are people present, where there are also police officers may be present, or security officials. So the term that was used with the writers of the report is that it is a brazen act. Many of these acts are brazen. So it's not hush, it's not, sort of just online where nobody knows who you are. You can hide behind a computer screen. These are offline, in your face, face-to-face violent incidents that is not just about verbal, but also physical, as the last incident that we saw in Paramatta.
Nora, that is really interesting, also scary. Brazen. Did you mention the word brazen?
Yep, brazen.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Coward is another way of saying it, but yeah, brazen, because obviously fear of authority is not necessarily a deterrent. We would like to think that it's a deterrent, but it's not a deterrent.
Okay.
So we need to sort of ask ourselves the question, why would a very public space not be a deterrent for somebody? Perhaps it's because they feel that the context in which we operate from, the political, socio-political context in which we're operating from, allows them to be brazen about it. Okay. They don't need to necessarily hide the fact that they have this irrational fear, that they hate Muslims or want to discriminate or be prejudiced against Muslim. We're now operating in a very national or nationalistic, populist, post-truth era, where there is almost it's okay to be against Muslims, and that's a sad reality. So when I said that Islamophobia has become normalized, well, statistics show that's exactly what's happening.
Okay, Haj Jamal, now that this report has been released, ICQ is the umbrella body for many of the Islamic institutions in Queensland.
Yep.
What has ICQ done about it? I mean, have you spoken to your members? What is the feedback from your members?
Okay. In terms of ICQ and disseminating information to its member societies, we have highlighted, because this register actually not many people knew in the community. Right. So we have highlighted the fact that every time there's an incident, no matter how trivial, it should be logged onto the register. Because Sister Nora mentioned 349. Now we believe that may be more than triple, because many in our community will not report it. And one of the reasons, we've been doing some groundwork as well. One of the reasons our sisters or even brothers say we don't report it, because we know the cops won't do anything about it. So that is one aspect. I had meetings with Peter Aitken and Deputy Commissioner and things, and we brought this up. And there are many instances. For example, the recent attack, graffiti on Holland Park Mosque. And, you know, people are not being charged as racial crimes or Islamophobia. It's damage to property or willful damage to property and things. So that takes away some of the important aspects of how rife the situation is, and in how much danger our people are. So we need to negotiate more with the police force and say, listen, you know, this must be treated within the context that we see it as well. It's not just an ordinary crime. It is something else. And I mean, basically, it is white nationalism. We have to say it out. And we have to call it out, like we've been called out in the past for the actions of one or two people or a handful. So this is exactly the same. It's the opposite side, and somebody has to call it out. Okay. So we are working, but we're not working in isolation, because then that it discourages people, and we're working not as a united front. So we're working closely with AMAN and interstate organizations as well as the parent bodies in terms of ANIC and AFIC.
Okay, and Haji, have you approached any relevant government departments in Queensland with regard to this report?
Well, I think Rita will fill you in more in terms of what we're doing in terms of a religious discrimination bill, and the number of meetings we've had with some of the key politicians behind this. Okay, good. So there's ongoing meetings. There's a couple coming up in December, I think. So it's been quite full on for all of us, actually.
Okay, good. Afshin, I see you very impatient. What do you want to say?
Well, there's a lot to say, to be honest, about this particular incident in Paramatta, but there was a more closer one to home. One of our friends, one of the member of our mosque.
Yes.
Islamic
you mean the Gold Coast?
Yes, Gold Coast Mosque. His wife, she's a lady covered and wears the niqab as well, and she went to the shopping center near Aldi in Labrador.
Yeah, that's right, Labrador, yes.
Familiar with that area. And she was walking to a shop.
Yes.
A white male coming out of the shop elbowed her and then walked out.
Right.
The lady was in pain, obviously crying, and went back home, and she was very scared of what happened. Around 3 days later, she saw the same male in the same vicinity and the same area in the same shopping center, took a photo of the number plate, but still to this day they haven't reported it.
So they have not reported to the police?
No.
Nor they have registered with the
Islamophobia Register. And I did pass on the information about the Islamophobia Register, but it still hasn't happened. Okay. But the thing is, now this lady is scared. She's not leaving the house without her husband. She does not go to shopping.
So she's like traumatized. But
she's traumatized, of course, and she was in pain. She had to go to the doctor to see if everything is all right. Okay. But she's Australian.
She's Australian, right?
She's Australian, but she's Muslim and she's covered.
She's a fair dinkum Australian, that's right.
Yes, so it's not a matter of race anymore. It's just a matter of attacking the religion of the person.
So, Craig, you heard this case from Afshin. Now, actually, what should the lady have done in this case?
Well, firstly, the lady should have contacted the police, and I will make sure that we contact her after the show. But what we say from a policing perspective is, if you've been a victim of a crime and you're unsure what to do, call us and we will come and address the matter, and we'll give you the appropriate advice. On the advice that I just heard then, it's clearly an assault, and there's a process we need to go through. Now, the concern for us is we believe that there's been under-reporting of offences committed against the Muslim community.
Right.
And what we are trying to do is to through shows like this and through other events where we go and converse with people from the Muslim community, get them to understand that we're here to keep them safe, as we're here to keep everyone in our community safe.
That's right.
But we can't do anything unless people report the matters to us.
True.
And we will help the people go through that process.
Right.
And we'll support them all the way.
Right.
Now, if during that process they don't wish to continue, then we will follow their wishes.
Okay.
But we need to make sure that we record these instances so we can be well aware of what's actually happening around the place.
You heard it from acting chief superintendent. You need to report the case. If you don't report, they can't take action. And secondly, there's no figures.
We did hear from the superintendent how the question still remains what Haji Jamal said before, is the fact that people have reported before a different incident, but the result they wanted, they didn't achieve the result they needed, or they wanted, or the desirable result that they want to see the person being charged and with a serious punishment. Because it's not getting treated as a racial attack or religious attack. It's more of an assault, like especially on the buildings, and it's just a willful damage to the building. What does that do really to the people of that society? And it keeps happening. So what is one solution that we can actually come up with, or something that you can say that actually people will have more trust in the police force and the punishment in the future?
Habib, from your personal experience, are there sufficient laws available for the QPS to implement? I know the laws are enacted by the parliament, right? They passed a law and you implement it. Are there sufficient laws?
Yes, there is, and I take on board what's just been said. What we do, we look at the most serious crime,
right,
and we will charge the person with the most serious crime.
Right.
Now, if that's under the Anti-Discrimination Act, then we would look at an offence under that, or if it's under the Criminal Code of Queensland, we'd look at an assault under the Criminal Code. But we'd always look at the most serious crime because there's a process that there could be some negotiations to how we manage that. But we always look at that, and I know the Queensland Police Service is aware of the anti-discrimination legislation, and part of our role is to make sure that all of our members are aware of that, and make sure that when we do get advised of these incidents and we investigate, we make sure that the appropriate charge is laid when sufficient evidence exists. We've got to be mindful though that, and I'll refer to the MFO dinner we had recently, and this is just an incident for me. I had a lady from Saudi Arabia came up and wanted to have a photo taken with me, and it was basically when I was in my country, you wouldn't be getting your photo taken arm in arm with a police officer. It doesn't happen there. So
maybe you're good looking.
Well, I was the only one there, but it just goes to show that what we're trying to do is say to encourage people that we're here to help them. And unless we know what's happening, we can't do that. Now we're willing to go to people's homes. We're willing to have support people with them to help them through the process. We're willing to make sure that if we need interpreters there, we can get interpreters there. We can get female police officers. So we're willing to help particularly these female victims, female victims, through this process and make it as easy as possible for them. Because our first concern is, and I understand, appreciate where you're coming from, our first concern is the victim and making sure that they are looked after, and that's our first priority. Now, if that means that an offender is found guilty and put before the court, that's fine, but it might be that the victim may not want that, and there may be some other resolution to solve that and try and change that behaviour of the offender.
I know the Queen of Gold Coast have been waiting patiently. Now, I would like to ask Cornelia, your organisation handles migrants as well as refugees. Now, some of them, or I don't know how many, happen to come from Islamic countries, and many of them wear headscarf. Have there been some incident, have they reported to you that they've been verbally harassed or physically harassed? Have you come across situations like that?
Well, in the last few years, MFO has noticed the increase of our female clients that are wearing headscarves, reporting the incidents of being harassed on the bus stop or tram, or even going to school or walking their kids to childcare. Since then, MFO implemented a lot of programs to assist and to educate communities to actually be aware of our differences. A lot of people act because they don't know actually who those people are, and it's a fear of unknown. They got scared of people because people are wearing headscarf. But once we introduce them to each other and we show that their differences are actually just in the way they dress and that everybody else is the same, they react differently. So a lot of our programs are based on that note to actually address our togetherness and our actually what we got together the same rather than our differences.
Right.
And it starts with Leaders of Positive Change. At the moment, I'm happy to announce that we just got the funding to do Safer Communities grant, where we're going to go to schools and educate our young people about what are the cultural and differences between the faiths and religions, and how can people work together and avoid those situations that somebody is bullied and attacked.
Okay. Rita, from a lawyer's point of view, in the state of Queensland, I'm not talking about national level, do we have sufficient law that's been enacted to encounter these type of harassment? Let me be more specific. Let's say a woman with headscarf, no matter she's a Muslim or non-Muslim, there are people who like to. If someone goes and snatch that headscarf from her, does it constitute an offense in according to the existing laws? Is it an offense?
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm sure the police want to answer this question, but I think
I'm talking from a legal point of view.
Yeah, no, from a legal point of view,
Yeah.
as soon as someone puts their hands on you and interferes with your person, there are grounds to argue assault, right? Physical assault.
So it's considered assault?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
But the issue is for us is that a lot of these assaults, even though they might be charged as assault and they might even be prosecuted and convicted as assault, because the hate aspect of the crime isn't being recognised, the punishment is not adequate. And our community then gets this feedback that we don't matter and that the hate aspect of these crimes doesn't matter. And that really has a terrible impact on community confidence in reporting.
Okay.
So in terms of laws, I do think there is a case to look at our criminal laws in Queensland. Western Australia, for example, has some stronger laws around inciting animosity and attacking someone because there is a hate motivation. I do think we need to look at our criminal laws.
Okay.
And the problem for us, though, is that if we don't have the data, it's very hard to make an advocacy case, right, with government. And that is where reporting to the Islamophobia Register becomes critically important. We need that data to make our argument.
Did you hear that? Very important. If you have any cases, please report to this data, right? What is the Islamophobia Registry?
Yeah, so
now how do they get in touch, or where can they find this information?
Just Google Islamophobia Register or look up islamophobia.com.au.
Okay.
There is an online reporting form, and the register is also looking to build its relationship with all the police forces around Australia as well. So it can, if the reporter says, yes, I'm happy for this report to be forwarded on to police, that report can be forwarded on.
Okay.
But we need those stories told, and part of our problem at the moment is that a lot of sisters are experiencing, and brothers, are experiencing verbal abuse.
Yes.
And they're saying, well, you know, verbal abuse isn't really assault, it's not a criminal act, so why should we report that?
Right.
Now, that's not cut and dried.
Okay.
If someone is harassing you, following you, physically intimidating you, making threats of violence against you, which they can carry out, then it is possibly a criminal act. And my advice is don't be the judge of whether it's a crime or not. Just report it, because police need all the intelligence they can have on individuals who are potentially have a pattern of abusing women in hijab and who are potentially about to escalate into a far worse crime. And we have a duty to our other sisters and brothers to make sure that these individuals are on the system.
So let's say if somebody comes and tells me, go back to your country, what recourse do I have?
Okay.
Do I register with this registry?
Yeah, yes. Put it down in the Islamophobia Register. It takes 5 minutes online, less than that. If you have if you want to say something to that person or take a picture of them, take a picture of their car, their number plate, feel free to do that. But what we're facing is actually a lot more than just go back to your own country. It's you effing, you know.
That's right, yeah.
Muslim terrorist, you Muslim whore, you Muslim bitch.
Yeah.
All these words are used against people in our community, and we are accepting it as somehow normal.
Rana, I know you have a program that you have recently introduced to MF4 based on a program that is done in Griffith University. Can you explain something about this course, please?
So we've been accredited to provide the MATE Bystander training. It's a training that's been developed by Griffith University to really explain to the community how they can be active bystanders. And sometimes we feel very helpless when we hear of these stories, horrific attacks on women and men in the street. And sometimes we just don't know what to do safely. And the MATE Bystander program goes through very thoroughly what we can do as bystanders to be proactive, to help someone in the community without putting our own safety at risk. If people are interested in that program, please contact us here at MFO. We're delivering this for free to communities. We just want this information to spread.
So this for the third party. Somebody bystander means what?
Yeah. A bystander is anybody who's witness to what's happened. They could be witnessed by being physically there. They could hear it over the phone. They could hear about the story later. So it's anyone who's aware of this situation and who can actually have a very strong impact on what's happened. Either they could support the victim afterwards, or they could actually take footage that would support the police case, or they could actually intervene. And we go through lots of different strategies on how to do that in a way that's comfortable and safe for them. It's really about leadership, and it's about taking responsibility as a community. This is all our problem. It's not just the Muslim community's problem. And I have to just acknowledge that 99.9% of the people we meet are so supportive. They want to help. It's really the very small minority who are the people who are perpetrating these acts.
Where can they get further information about this course?
Please go to our website, www.mfo.org.au, and contact us through email, and we're more than happy to register you. And let's work together as a community to try and really eliminate violence.
You got that message? Remember, that's www.mf4.org.au. That's right. Habib, you want to add something?
Just in regards to what Afshin and Craig were talking about earlier on. We meet quite often with QPS reference group in Brisbane. And we brought up an issue that what's happening when people are reporting these events and we find there's no action being taken. And the superintendent there did advise that, for example, the Holland Park incident, the one where somebody threw something, or
I think they drew on the wall.
No, that was one. There was another one as well. Within a week apart. And they actually tracked somebody down. So the point we made was, we need to know, or we need some feedback from QPS that certain event took place. This is the outcome. Person has either been found or arrested or something, and it's now with the court. Now, if in this case, even Holland Park management didn't know that they tracked somebody down, So if I as ICQ know, no, they did catch somebody, I can then tell people this is still it's a matter of going to court. They have found somebody, and that will give people more confidence to say yes, something is happening, rather than not hearing at all, no feedback. And that's when you get the attitude, nobody's going to listen to us.
Habib, are you referring to a communication channel between your organization and QPS?
Well, not only my organization, it could be IWAA because they're representing all the sisters.
Okay.
You know, they might get more complaints than what ICQ get.
Okay.
You
So
know,
as of now, police doesn't have a department to handle these inquiries, or
they don't.
Okay.
And one of the other things we brought up was that every time we make a report, there's some new person behind the desk.
Okay.
Changes every 7 days.
All right.
So when you want to go back to inquire, nobody knows.
Okay.
So, you know, we said, can there be one contact or two contact reference people that we can talk to?
Okay,
so
good.
this is in Brisbane.
Now, that was a very interesting point made by Haji Jamal. And Craig, what you got to say about that?
It's disappointing. We should be notifying all parties involved in investigations,
Right.
all the results.
Right.
Courts are open,
Right.
so once a decision's made in court, it's an open court, which means it's public information.
Right.
So we can provide that information. So I don't know what happened on that instance, but I'm certainly sure that we can look into that and make sure it doesn't happen again. And then it's a matter of contacting, and I suspect the management of the mosque should have been contacted because they would have been the complainant, which means they should have been advised of the outcome, and then they can then either pass it through your channels, or we can make sure that as another way we can include a second quality control measure to make sure that happens.
Now, in other words, is it possible for QPS to set up a separate department, maybe manned by 1 or 2 persons, just to follow up these matters?
No, well, unfortunately, we work in a geographical area, so we've got a footprint across the whole state. But and I can talk about a Gold Coast specific issue here. Is whilst we have a number of police out there doing frontline duties, and we'll go to incidents involving Muslim community, the constant that we have on the Gold Coast is our DCPCs and our cross-cultural liaison people,
Right.
who have that one-on-one relationship with the community.
That's right.
So my commitment to the community of the Gold Coast would be, if you're not happy with the service that you've got
Yes.
from the frontline people,
Yes.
then go to our crime prevention people, our community liaison, or
Right.
come to people like me in a management situation,
Right.
and we can make sure that we're doing everything that's appropriate
Okay.
to support the victims of crimes.
Okay. Sister Rita, a few days ago, I visited your Facebook and I saw the profile photo. And next to your photo, you have this statement, "Stop violence against women." What's it all about?
The first thing's because from 25th of November,
Yes.
for the next 16 days, it's campaigning stop against domestic violence against a woman, put it this way.
So you mean that is the national day?
Yes.
For the elimination of violence against women?
That's right.
Okay,
yes.
right.
It's for around of the world. It's
That's
not just
around
only
the world,
for
that's right,
Australia.
okay, yes.
It's around of the world. We all women need to put our hand up to enough is enough
Right.
to stop the domestic violence. It doesn't matter, it's domestic violence.
Yes.
They need to be stopped.
Yes.
So if we can't stop it by physically, we need to put a word out
Yes.
to get the word out and say it's a stop. It's enough. It's enough.
Okay.
And also regarding the questions which was Afshin
Yes.
and Craig
Craig,
was mentioning. When my brother Afshin mentions the lady, she got attacked the second time and she didn't report. And then Craig mentioned they need to come and report it back to a station. As a multicultural woman, as an Afghani woman, so most of the time the women don't feel comfortable to go even talk to the husband or brother or other male, because they think they have one blood, is something's going to happen between family and hers, and they keep it with themselves until they're getting really abused. So my message is, we've got an organization like Islamic at the IWAA and some of other organizations. If they come to us, we can keep the confidentiality and we can go through very confidential with another organization to talk, and it's what's happening to report that, because this experience been last 10 years. I've been hearing from other women. Most of the women went to the police station and report some incidents, and when the family or relative find out, and that's they kind of like finding the shame to bring in the family or bad name in the family, and then they broke their marriage actually after a couple of years because that incident was keep taking going on and on and on, and this is kind of like verbal abuse for them, not physically, because people do talk. Abuse is not only physically, it's a verbally as well. That's actually damaging women more than physically. If you're getting abused physically, you can get healed by medication, but if you get mentally,
yes.
and that is it's kind of take a very long time to get healed. But that's what's happening. I'm trying to passing the message. If any sister seeing anything is like not right, please come to one of your good friend. They don't know any authority. They can talk to them and keep the confidential between them. And I'm just putting back to my sister if she's got anything to say.
Would you like to add on it, Nora?
I can definitely. I can definitely add on to it, because it's not just the re-traumatization or the honor and shame in which impacts on the underreporting of Islamophobic incidents, but it's also about the fact that many Muslim women in particular who wear the headscarf feel that it's just part and parcel of life as a Muslim woman in Australia wearing a headscarf. They literally think that this is the consequence of what it's like to live in a, in whether it's anywhere in the West, as a Muslim woman. And so therefore it's almost like, yeah, of course that would happen. And so I don't need, it's a sad reality. It's a real sad reality that many Muslim women will say, okay, they called me some names. Well, that's just life, and I'll deal with that. So a lot of women do just brush it off, myself included. So it's just, we don't make more of it than it should be, and this is the problem. So I guess my last thing that I want to emphasize, and this is what Rana said very beautifully, is that it is a community issue. It's not a Muslim issue. It's not an individual issue. It's not, ICQ or IWAA or AMAN or even a police issue necessarily. It is a community's issue. It is part of the teething problems that we're going through as part of nation building. We are a young democracy. These are the issues that we need to nip in the bud right now if we want to create this inclusive, harmonious, cohesive society that we all aspire Australia to be. We all need to be active bystanders in this. Call it out when it does, that it's not a Muslim women's issue. It's not a child's issue who happens to play in the playground and is called a terrorist and doesn't know how to deal with that. It is from the very leadership, so advocating as voters to advocate for a compassionate leadership, but it's always organizations like ours on the ground to be able to support people who do encounter some of these violent incidents.
Very well said. Very good point, Nora, and also of course Rita. That's why almost all my talk show I emphasize the importance of community. No matter where you come from, no matter what language you speak, no matter what your beliefs are, we are all brothers and sisters in humanity. We have to be compassionate to each other and kind to each other. Okay. Rita, you want to add something? Okay, please.
What we're seeing in the real world, when I say the real world, I mean in physical life, person to person, is very much a translation of what we're seeing online. And the Islamophobia in Australia report showed this in very clear numbers. The intensity of hate rhetoric that we're seeing online is now exactly what people are saying in a very opportunistic way on the street, in the shops, on trains and buses, to people that are visibly Muslim. And part of what we're trying to do at the national level, there's a combined advocacy effort happening. Okay. There are 150 Australian Muslim organisations that recently made a joint submission to the Australian government.
Okay, yes, I heard about it.
Yes,
that was good, yes.
And this submission is saying, look, you're interested in religious freedom, you're passionate about it. The Australian Prime Minister has talked about religious freedoms.
That's right, yes.
They're putting in a religious discrimination bill.
Right.
Our religious freedom at the moment is in peril. We don't feel safe in our own communities. And this is the basic religious freedom, security and safety. So we are asking for an anti-vilification clause to go into the religious discrimination bill, which would for the first time provide protection to any religious community and our community against those who incite hatred or violence against us. It's happening online at an endemic level. 53% of Australian youth, according to the E-Safety Commissioner, have seen anti-Muslim radical content online. And yet we have no recourse we have no way of bringing any party to account or to the table, and we desperately need a line to be drawn in the sand to say, you can criticise religion, but as soon as you start endangering our community by inciting hatred and violence against us and normalising hatred, so people then go and act out public hatred on us in public places, you have crossed a line. We need our leaders to make that line.
Excuse me, Rita. So where do you draw a line between freedom of speech and hate speech in this case?
So freedom of speech. So freedom of speech is like a concept.
Now, if somebody can say something against Islam, is that freedom of speech?
Okay, so if they want to criticise the Quran, for example, and say, okay, the Quran is full of violent passages and it's religion. Islam is a backwards religion. Blah blah blah. Yeah. They can criticise the religion. They can criticise the Quran. They just like they can criticise the Bible, for example. But when they start saying all Muslims are an evil death cult, and a good Muslim is a dead Muslim, and let's kill half the Muslims and let the other half decide whether they want to renounce their religion or die, right? If they say stuff like this, that is where they have crossed a line. And at the moment, there is no line. So all of that is lawful free speech. And our problem as a community is that we are sitting ducks at the moment. We are an easy target because of the lack of legal protection.
Okay. So now this submission that you've submitted to the government, at what level has it gone now?
So it went to the Australian government as part of discussions on the Religious Discrimination Bill.
Right.
There is now an advocacy push happening. I work for the Australian Muslim Advocacy Network,
That's
AMAN.
Right. Yes.
We are working with ICQ, with ANIC at the national level, AFIC, ICV, a number of Muslim bodies to meet with MPs and senators across the Australian Parliament. Unfortunately, there seems to be a lack of awareness that we don't have any protection as a community. It's like news to people that we're speaking to. So this has been a really important conversation to have.
Yeah, of course.
And really, at the end of the day, it will come down to how much support we can get in the Senate in particular, and we'll be looking to those, those crossbenchers like Jackie Lambie and etc. Yeah.
Now, this submission has been submitted to Senate and some parliamentarians. How is their response so far? Have they been positive?
Yeah, so everyone we speak to in government and in opposition so far has said to us, this is a very reasonable proposal that you've put forward. It's very modest, practical. You're not asking for, you've set a high threshold, so you've allowed for religious criticism and free speech. You're setting the threshold at where, endangerment is starting to happen, right? And we've also used language that the government itself has used in their bill. So we've been quite strategic in saying, look, you've recognised this as a standard, as a normative standard. Now let it be a shield, a protective shield for religious communities. And that should make sense in a bill that is about religious freedom. And so far, the feedback has been, look, as in policy terms, it makes sense. Now the question is, will it work in political terms?
Good. Now let it work on its, so let the submission work on its own, and of course people from ICQ, AFIG, ANIC will be following through. Now I would like you to, yes?
But could I also add, it'd be great if people can take an interest in this issue as it comes into the media from our community, and if they have relationships with members of Parliament, raise it with them, tell them they support it, tell them they want it, because our community needs it.
I'm sure. I mean, the parliamentarian in Queensland very friendly, and many of our, like in ICQ and even individual basis, we all have connection with our our representatives in the local parliament. So we can do. So what we should write a petition letter, or get a copy of the submission and send it to them. What should we do?
Yes. Look, it's on the AMAN website.
AMAN website. Okay.
Yeah.
www.aman.net.au.
Okay. They can contact ICQ. They can contact ANIC or AFIC if for a copy as well. But it's publicly available. they can just say, look, we want to see protection in the Religious Discrimination Bill, and they'll get the message.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And before you go, can you remind our audience about that registry again?
Okay.
Okay, please.
So the Islamophobia Register is online.
Right.
You can report a complaint online. It only takes a few minutes, and it will add to our national data set, which we can then use to make our point to government and across to all Australians that we need a collective effort.
Good. Make it your responsibility. Please, if there's any case that need to be reported, please go to the registry.
If you report to the Islamophobia Register, your details will be kept confidential and anonymous. So your story will be included in their report, and that will be added to the data, but your name and your personal details won't be shared, and that will be protected.
Oh, that's good. That's very good. That's very important.
Yeah.
Craig, you had a question?
Yeah, just from if there's an immediate threat facing someone, is there a responsibility for that agency to contact the local law enforcement?
Yes, there is. Thank you for raising that. So if someone reports to the Islamophobia Register and it looks like it's like it could be terrorist activity or an extremist threat, or we're worried about that person's immediate personal safety, then yes, it is forwarded immediately to police, or we usually ring the person first and just check, and then we forward to police. But yeah, that's the only instance where we would have to do that.
Okay. Brother Habib, anything that you want to add, please?
Just to add to what Sister Rita said about the register.
Yes.
There may be some people that are not comfortable going online. They don't have the knowledge or don't have internet or whatever. So maybe the individual society should put it out there that if you have a problem, report to us and we will get online and put it onto the register.
So let's say a mosque.
Somebody in the Gold Coast comes to Islamic Society Gold Coast
yes.
and reports, then you help them to put it on the register.
So what you're saying is somebody in this institution, let be a mosque or Islamic institution, be responsible to liaise with...
Not to help them, not responsible. Just be make it known that if you don't have access to internet or afraid to use the computer, somebody will help you. You just need to ask.
Good.
You know?
Make things easier.
And I think finally... I apologize in advance if I offend anybody, but I sometimes battle with the double standards that we see, especially on TV, the morning shows, you know, the ladies, they're full of women's rights and things, but it seems like only certain women have those rights. They don't cover non-white rights, basically, to be honest. You know, whether it's our indigenous people that are going through really difficult times sometimes in Northern Territories and things, and then you get the same with I didn't see much coverage of the Paramatta incident on TV. You know, there was on the news coverage, but there was no ongoing debate the next morning or anybody condemning the person or whatever.
Yes.
So had it been the other way around, would have still been covered until now.
That's true. That's true.
That's the point I make.
Thank you, each one of you, for your participation. Thank you so much taking out your precious time to come and join us in this very interesting discussion and very informative. Okay, so those who are watching this program, please share it with your friends and let them know there are avenues available to lodge their complaint confidentially, right? Okay, thank you so much. Thank you very much. And inshallah, we see you next time. Goodbye.